Very good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on TV1. You're joining me, David Paldano. Now, before we head into your story in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines this evening.
Mindship 5 luxury cruise reaches Colombo. Many monks exit universities as laymen, says President.
එහෙනම් අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා තීරණය කරන්න ඕනේ පැවිද්දන් හැටියට ආවොත් පැවිදිකමේම ඉන්න අපි උපාධියත් පැවිදිකමෙන් දෙන්නම් ආපහු මාරු කරන්නේ නැහැ.
Ex-embassy staffer accused of sexually exploiting women in Oman arrested. Houses given on rent for 76 MPs who lost their homes to unrest.
මං හිතන්නේ දෙකේ පන්තියට ඉස්කෝලේ ගිය මිනිහෙක් නම් ඕකත් අවබෝධ කරගන්නවා. මේ සල්ලි අරන් හොරා කාපු මිනිහෙක්ගේ මගේ අධ්‍යාපන සාධන මේ පෙන්නන්න ඕනේ.
Doctors who migrate without proper approvals to be blacklisted. BBC says Chinese police assaulted its journalists during protest.
Now taking a look at one of your headline-making stories, super luxury cruise ship Mindship 5 reached the port of Colombo on Tuesday the 29th of November and will head to Hambantota on Wednesday the 30th of November.
Super luxury cruise Mindship 5 has a capacity of 2,500 guests and was built in 2016. This cruise ship is 295 meters long and was carrying 2,014 passengers and 922 crew. It reached the port of Colombo on Tuesday morning and anchored at the East Container Terminal. Ministers Harin Fernando and Nimal Tiripala welcomed the guests and special trade stalls were set up at the port premises for the visitors.
This
is the dawn of a new era. As Minister of Ports and Shipping, I am very pleased that the Colombo port has become a destination for cruise passengers. The people must not engage in actions that will prevent tourist arrivals, but support to boost the tourism in the country.
මේ සංචාරකයන්ගේ පැමිණීම වළක්වන ක්‍රියාවල් කරන්නේ නැතුව සංචාරකයන් ලංකාවට පැමිණීම වර්ධනය කරන ක්‍රියාවන් සඳහා එකතු වෙන්න කියලා මම ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
මෙවැනි ආයතන ලංකාවත් එක්ක නැවත වතාවක් අත්වල බැඳ ගැනීම සංචාරක
Cruise operators joining hands with Sri Lanka is vital for the tourism sector. 2 more cruise ships will reach Sri Lanka in December. Those travelling in these cruise lines are big spenders. Some even take flights to Sigiriya. The vessel heads to Hambantota tomorrow, where it will be met with 100 jeeps to travel to Yala. Tourism alone can boost Sri Lanka and it needs the support of all its citizens.
මේ සංචාර ශේෂ්ත්‍රයෙන් පමණක්ම ඇත්තටම. ඒකට ලංකාවේ ඉන්න හැම පුරවැසියෙක්ම සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න ඕනේ.
Super luxury cruise ship Mindship 5 will head to Hambantota on Tuesday night and will leave Sri Lankan waters at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. 4 similar cruise ships are expected to visit Sri Lanka before the end of the year.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe told Parliament on Tuesday the 29th of November that a large number of people enter universities as monks end up as laymen and steps need to be taken to prevent the situation.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe was present in Parliament on Tuesday for the debate on the expenditure head of the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs. The President also responded to recent comments made by the opposition leader.
First of all, I would like to thank the opposition leader for bringing up the Parabhava Sutra. As far as I know, the Parabhava Sutra does not talk about the Venerable Mahasangha. According to the preaching of the Buddha, Suijano Bhavan Hoti, Suijano Parabhavo, Dhammakamo Bhavan Hoti, Dhammadesi Parabhavo. A person who improves can be known according to those acts. A person who deteriorates can also be known. He who engages in the 10 virtues improves and he who hates them deteriorates. The Parabhava Sutra refers to the Dhamma and not the Sangha. I think our opposition leader has got the Dhamma and Sangha mixed up. We have to understand the difference. Both Sangha and lay people should follow the Dhamma. Sometimes the lay people can live without following the Dhamma, but we should live according to Dhamma. I would like to remind him of one more thing. Asantasya piya honti, santena kurute piyang, asantang dhamman roseti, nang parabhavato mukhan. The wicked are dear to him. With the virtuous he finds no delight. He prefers the creed of the wicked. This is a cause of one's downfall.
දෙසටක මිත්‍යා දෘෂ්ටීන් ඇති අසත්පුරුෂ ධර්මය ප්‍රිය කරන්නේද මේ කරුණු තුන පිරීමේ දෙවන දොරටුවයි.
The president also commented on a bill to register a discourse but empowers the Mahasangha to protect the Sangha discipline.
When a Mahasangha does not act according to the Dhamma, many problems arise. It has been happening since the Buddha's time. Angulimala acted against the Buddha while wearing saffron robes. That is why for the first time we have approved a bill to register a discourse to give powers to the Mahasangha. I saw an undergraduate monk scolding and blaming our most venerable Malwatu and Asgiri Mahanayaka Theros. We have to ask who these people are. Are they real monks or impersonators? It is not possible to gain special protection by merely wearing robes and acting against the Dhamma. Today, a large number of people enter universities as monks but end up as laymen. Initially, we must decide that if we enter the university as monks, we will be awarded the degree as monks and it will not be transferable. If they need to derobe, they should discuss it with their Mahanayaka Theros. The behavior of the monks in universities should also be linked to these discourses. If the existing method continued, our order will be lost.
සම්බන්ධ කරන්න. එතකොට ඒ වැඩ කටයුත්ත බාර දෙන්න. නැත්තම් මේ ක්‍රමවේදයේ ගොත් ශාසනය නැති වෙන්නේ.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා නිතර
The president is preaching the Dhamma in parliament. Earlier he said that Lord Buddha did not speak about equality. He should be reminded that Lord Buddha preached the Dasaraja Dharma and the Satara Sangraha Vastu. He clearly mentioned about equality in governance. It is wise if he follows that as well. As far as we know, Angulimala did not go against the Dhamma. It was Devadatta who did that.
නිසා ඒකත් මතක් කරගත්තොත් හොඳයි කියලා මුලින්ම කියන්න කැමතියි.
Federation of University Teachers Association commented on the president's recent remarks on university academics.
He said that we have become that pawns of one media institution which is criticizing him. This is basically a wrong interpretation. No media organization is involved in organizing press conferences. I participated for this press today on the request of the Federation of University Teachers Association. In addition to this, he made another accusation that ragging should be stopped. If he challenged us, then I would like to accept that challenge. But to accept that challenge, we need to have the ability, because a university professor is not able to do anything to stop ragging within their capacity. Dealing with this is basically the responsibility of the university administration. The statement made by the president is not a simple one. The university administration actually uses matters like ragging for opportunistic purposes and not to control it. I think it would be useful if there is a serious discussion about the problematic situation of these universities instead of using them opportunistically just because they want to attack or criticize someone politically.
ඒවා පිළිබඳව බරපතල සාකච්ඡාවක් ඇති කර ගන්නවා නම් මම හිතන්නේ ප්‍රයෝජනවත් වෙයි කියලා මම හිතනවා.
මානවිකන් කොමිසමට තර්ජනයක් කරනවා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ.
The Human Rights Commission is being threatened in the parliament. He thinks that the police and the army are there to protect him and not the country or the government. The army is deployed, the state of emergency is imposed, and if that happens again, we won't allow it. There is no place for dindium in this country.
No dindium අපි එයාට නම් ඊට දෙන්නේ නැහැ මේ රටේ ඉන්න.
The Inter-University Students' Federation responded to attempts being made to set a fixed time period for students to complete their degree programs.
Within the universities, there are deadlines to completing the degree. If it is a 3-year general degree, it should be completed within 6 years. If it is a 4-year special bachelor's degree, the degree must be completed within 8 years. Why do university students have to stay in the university longer than their 3 to 4 years or graduation period? Isn't there a problem with regards to the age limit or a time period for being an MP? This is a joke. There are enormous problems within the decision-making process regarding education which needs to be resolved. Take Mahinda Rajapaksa, who has been in parliament for 52 years since 1976. Take Ranil Wickremesinghe, who left the university at the age of 21 and has been in politics for 70 years and now speaking about the university students being in university for too long. They are trying to portray this as a major problem of the country and trying to bring in various bills. Do not make such jokes.
An independent member of the Bagamur Pradeshya Sabha protested on Tuesday, demanding the immediate release of the convener of the IUSF Vasantha Mudalige, who was detained under the Prevention of Terrorism Act and later remanded. He arrived at the Bagamur Pradeshya Sabha from the Malsiripura town, displaying protest placards on his three-wheeler.
It's been 90 days now and nothing has been found. They're just procrastinating. I feel that the infamous 1989 torturers have been entrusted with the suppression of those who are against the Rajapaksas. Wickramasinghe must release Wasantha Mudalige and do not protect the thieves, nab the rogues, recover the loot and build this country.
Words were exchanged in Parliament over the provision of houses for MPs who lost their homes following the May 9th unrest.
A majority of the government MPs lost their homes. This cannot be accepted. A housing unit in Kalalgoda is worth 40 million rupees. All those who are speaking against Sajith Premadasa have been given houses from Viyatpura and money to renovate their ruined homes. They get a unit from Kalalgoda and another house from Madiwala. In total, they have 3 houses.
These houses were given for a period of 1 year with a monthly rental charge from the occupant parliamentarian. Not a single parliamentarian was given a house free of charge. Anyone can purchase a house from here. These 76 parliamentarians were not compensated by the government. I too am a victim of this. If one wants to purchase the house, an estimate can be obtained from the government valuer. 76 houses were rented and the remainder can be obtained.
I got to know this and I paid a visit to the site. Some have not paid their rent. These houses are insured, but it was done after the houses were set on fire. The central government has made the provisions for the insurance companies. The legal basis has been given. I will provide it later. These insurance companies have been paid by the government. Then no one knows about it. Do not do these kinds of things.
What kind of system is that? This is a complete lie. All parliamentarians have signed agreements with the UD. A sum will be cut off from their salaries. He gets angry when he is denied a house.
I do not need to show my educational qualifications to a man who steals. It has been proven in court that he commits theft.
The economic crisis has engulfed the country. The United Nations says that the crisis is the result of economic crimes. Experts say the root cause for those crimes are corruption, fraud, and incompetent decision-making by arrogant leaders. And although the citizens of Sri Lanka did not take these decisions, they are the ones affected by the economic crisis. While those responsible escape, the innocent suffer. In the midst of these difficult times, this is a story of a Wonder Woman. S. Dayavati lives in this house in the Dambakol area of the Valapane Divisional Secretariat Division. She lives here with her grandchild. For many years now, this granddaughter has been raising her grandchild alone after her daughter suddenly passed away. The house they lived in collapsed a few years ago, leaving them homeless. With the economic crisis, it was difficult to find someone who would build a house for them. They now live in this hut, which cannot even withstand the wind. Dayavati spends the little she earns from doing hired work on her granddaughter's education. They survive on just 1 meal a day. This innocent grandmother isn't asking for a palace worth millions. All she wants is a small home to keep them safe.
We're going for a short commercial break. Stay tuned for more of the very latest.
News First, main sponsor.
25% for 2 months, 25.5% for 4 months. Valuable FD.
Anka ege arakshita itigini petti. Surya gini petti.
Ivan satutin inne wiring karala. Wiring kirwe Eslon Polycon yodala.
For your safety and the protection of the wires used in networking and AC wiring, Eslon Polycon cable trunking.
Welcome back to the news. Taking a look at another one of your headline-making stories. The former third secretary of the Sri Lankan embassy in Oman, E. Kushan, who was arrested by the Criminal Investigations Department, was remanded till the 13th of December 2022. The suspect was produced before Colombo Chief Magistrates Court Nandana Amarasinghe on Tuesday the 29th of November.
The former third secretary of the Sri Lankan embassy in Oman was arrested on Tuesday morning by the Criminal Investigation Department at the BIA upon arrival. He reached Sri Lanka aboard a flight from Muscat, Oman. The former third secretary of the Sri Lanka embassy in Oman was grilled by detectives for over 6 hours and was then taken away to the Human Trafficking, Smuggling and Maritime Crime Investigation Division. This embassy staffer, who is currently under suspension, had also produced a letter bearing the signature of the Sri Lanka ambassador to Oman, noting that he was unwell. The suspect was produced to court after he was produced to the judicial medical officer. The former third secretary of the Sri Lankan embassy in Oman, E. Kushan, faces allegations of sexual misconduct towards Sri Lankan women stranded in Oman and held at the embassy safe house. The CID informed the court that the third secretary of the foreign mission was arrested after recording statements from the first and second secretaries of the Sri Lankan embassy in Oman. Defence counsel informed the court that their client was not connected to any of the allegations or human trafficking. They pointed out that the allegation was made by one woman who led a group of other women to break out the safe house in Oman, and she made the absurd allegations as measures were taken to bring her back to the safe house. Counsel requested for bail for their client under any bail condition. However, the CID pointed out that the suspect was arrested based on a warrant obtained from court after making the relevant submissions. The CID told the court that a complex investigation is taking place with regard to trafficking Sri Lankan women to Oman, sexually exploiting them and using them for various other activities. Therefore, the CID said that granting bail to the suspect pending investigations would obstruct the inquiry, and thereby the Chief Magistrate rejected the bail request.
Sri Lanka police released more details surrounding the brutal stabbing in Mattakkuliya on Monday the 28th of November. Police said the victim was a person who was arrested on suspicion over the Easter Sunday terror attacks and was later released from all charges.
Two men who arrived in a car committed a brutal stabbing in broad daylight on Monday. Mohammad Badruddin Mohammad Farhan was chased down by the killers and he succumbed to his injuries upon being admitted to the hospital.
The deceased was arrested along with 4 other suspects. 2 detonators, 1 kilogram of ammonia, 2 sticks of gelatinite and 2 sets of military uniforms were found in their possession. Investigations has been conducted regarding this matter and advice had been sought from the Attorney General. Accordingly, 3 of the 5 suspects were released from the case. This victim is among the 3 who were released. Also, the case against him in court yesterday was a case regarding money laundering.
Sri Lanka police said that investigations are underway to determine the true motive of the murder and to locate the killers.
Activist Chiranta Amarasinghe posted an online video stating that people were trying to kill him. On the other hand, a person linked to Easter Sunday attacks was killed yesterday. What is happening in this country? Is injustice reigning supreme? The leader of the house must make a statement. If you look at the history of our country, multiple events have taken place. Given the present situation, there was the Aragalaya. Political issues, social issues and economical issues. That has been happening since July and August. We do not know if this is something pre-planned. The IGP and the police CID must investigate this. That is the nature of criminal law. We can call for an investigation, but we cannot comment or give an opinion on that now.
Health Minister Kehelia Rambukwala announced in Parliament that doctors who travel abroad without proper permission will be blacklisted. He said that notice will be issued on these doctors stating that they have vacated their post.
Any doctor should travel overseas by following a proper process. As doctors belong to an executive grade service, they can only travel overseas with permission from the Prime Minister. If not, we will have to consider that the doctor had vacated his or her post and blacklist them from the service. These announcements are made from time to time and the registration with the Medical Council can be terminated.
We're going in for another short commercial break. Stay tuned as we bring you more of the very latest.
ලොවටම එළිය දෙන්න දිලෙන සූර්යා අමතක වෙන්නෙම නැති නමගේ සූර්යා පොහොතින් දැල්වෙන ගිනි කුර සූර්යා කවදත් නමගත් ගිනි පෙට්ටි සූර්යා කවදත් නමගත් ගිනි පෙට්ටි සූර්යා කවදත් කොතනත් සමගේ විශ්වාසය දිනාගත් අංක එකේ ආරක්ෂිත ඉටි ගිනි පෙට්ටි සූර්යා ගිනි පෙට්ටි.
Welcome back to the news. Foreign Minister Ali Sabri says that he is confident that Sri Lanka can come out of the current crisis. He made these remarks in Parliament yesterday regarding the country's stance.
Debt restructuring and IMF process has almost come to a finality now. Only thing that is been holding back is the debt assurance letters which need to be taken from all the creditors, particularly the Paris Club, which include Japan and the Western countries, India and China. Luckily for us, both India and China and the Paris Club had cooperated, and they have come to a physical meeting in Washington with the IMF about a month ago. Thereafter, they also convened at the platform on virtual in Sri Lanka. It was conducted by IMF once again. I am very confident that both India and China, being our close friends, neighbors, long-standing allies, will not let us down. They will grant those debt assurances as soon as possible. The moment we get that, either in December or in January, we probably may be able to go to the IMF and get the board approval. If the board approval comes, it's not that that money is going to solve your problem. It's about the confidence. The whole country and the whole financial market will get confidence on Sri Lanka. ADB has agreed to line up some funds. World Bank has lined up some funds. AIIB had shown interest to support Sri Lanka. When all those things happen, we should be able to turn around this very, very critical and difficult time. We all must understand this is a challenge for all of us. It is easy for us to point fingers at each other, criticize each other, but the issue right now is what is the solution. If there is anything other than this, you show that, we will also support you. I have told that long time ago. In April, when I took the finance ministry also, I told, if you have a better solution, please come and implement it. We all will support. It did not take place. No one did come. No one took it. And now that, rightly or wrongly, the president has followed the procedure, he has been elected, I think he deserves some breathing space for him to deliver. This is just 4 months. During that 4 months, you can see the difference what he has made. Think about the country. Let us come out of it. Even if you come, or the opposition, you need to have a country to run.
Major General Channa Veerasurya was appointed as the Chief of Staff of the Sri Lanka Army on Tuesday, the 29th of November. Major General Channa Veerasurya is one of the most respected officers of the Sri Lanka Light Infantry and counts over 35 years of exemplary service in his military career. Besides having held many numerous appointments, Major General Veerasurya has held numerous important appointments in command and staff capacity. This senior officer has been awarded medals in recognition of his gallantry and invaluable and selfless dedication, and excelled in the face of the enemy in the battlefield. Meanwhile, 5 Indian poaching trawlers were held in the northern waters during a special operation conducted by the Navy and Coast Guard.
Sri Lanka Navy and Sri Lanka Coast Guard conducted a special operation in northern waters to chase away Indian poaching trawlers from Sri Lanka's waters yesterday. The operation led to the seizure of 5 Indian trawlers with 24 Indian fishermen poaching in the island's waters off the Kovilan lighthouse Karanega in Jaffna. The seized trawlers, together with 24 Indian fishermen, were brought to the Kankesanturai harbour, and they will be handed over to the Maldive Fisheries Inspector for onward legal proceedings. In the recent apprehension, the Navy has seized 35 Indian poaching trawlers and 252 Indian fishermen during operations conducted thus far in the year 2022 and handed them over to the authorities for onward legal action. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has apprised the central government and sought action to secure the release of fishers and their boats from the neighbouring country. Writing to External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, Stalin said this year alone 221 Tamil Nadu fishermen were apprehended by the Sri Lanka Navy.
Now on to your international news making local headlines. The BBC said Chinese police officers had assaulted one of its journalists covering a protest in the commercial hub of Shanghai and detained him for several hours.
Protesters have taken to the streets of Shanghai, Beijing and other cities in recent days to demonstrate against heavy COVID-19 measures, a show of civil disobedience that is unprecedented since leader Xi Jinping assumed power. BBC said Chinese police had assaulted one of its journalists covering a protest. China has disputed the account and said the journalist had not identified himself as a reporter. In Beijing, a foreign ministry spokesperson said the BBC's statement did not reflect what had happened. Foreign reporters in China are required to carry government-issued cards identifying themselves as accredited journalists when covering news events. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said in a speech on Monday, instead of listening to their people's protests, the Chinese government has chosen to crack down further, including by assaulting a BBC journalist.
We recognise China poses a systemic challenge to our values and interests. A challenge that grows more acute as it moves towards even greater authoritarianism. Instead of listening to their people's protests, the Chinese government has chosen to crack down further, including by assaulting a BBC journalist. The media and our parliamentarians must be able to highlight these issues without sanction, including calling out abuses in Xinjiang and the curtailment of freedom in Hong Kong.
Britain would raise concerns with China about the response to protests while continuing to seek constructive relations with Beijing on other issues. A Reuters journalist was also detained for about 90 minutes on Sunday night before being released.
Anti-government protests in Iran continued mainly through nationwide strikes by truckers and protest rallies at universities during the day and street rallies throughout the night.
Truck drivers and owners in many cities across the country did not move their vehicles in one of the biggest strikes taking place in more than 2 months since the current wave of protests began following the death in police custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. Truckers in several cities refrained from moving goods in support of the protests, sit-ins and strikes by industrial workers. Many people on social media described the strike by the truckers as a significant blow to the republic since it has potential to cripple the economy.
The International Monetary Fund is still analysing Pakistan's fiscal position, particularly the flood-related expenditures that it viewed had changed the macroeconomic assumptions of the fund's program.
The Pakistan Ministry of Finance said in response to a media query on delay in 9th review said that the IMF understands that the floods have changed the macroeconomic assumptions on which the program was designed. Therefore, detailed analysis is being conducted by their team using the data provided. The two sides had been virtually engaged for more than a month now in attempts to conclude the 9th review this month so that the next tranche of about $1.18 billion could be approved by the IMF's executive board and dispersed before Christmas and New Year holidays. Under the normal mechanism, the fund's staff mission has to reach an agreement with authorities on program implementation and then require at least a fortnight for the board members to hold a meeting based on staff agreement. A further delay would mean the unavailability of the IMF executive board until the first week of January.
Monkeypox will now be known as Mpox, as announced by the World Health Organization after complaints over racist and stigmatist language linked to the virus's name.
The old term will be used alongside the new one for a year before being phased out. Mpox was decided on after lengthy discussions between experts, countries and the general public. The WHO said it can be easily used in English as well as other languages. Human monkeypox was first identified in 1970 and named after the disease caused by the virus was discovered in captive monkeys more than a decade before.
The world's largest active volcano in Hawaii, Mauna Loa, has erupted for the first time in almost 40 years.
The lava flow is mostly contained within the summit, but residents have been placed on alert and were earlier warned about the risk of falling ash. The US Geological Service has said the situation could change rapidly. The volcano's alert level has also been upgraded from an advisory to a warning, the highest classification. Mauna Loa, located inside Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, covers half of the US state's Big Island. The volcano rises 13,679 feet above sea level and spans an area of more than 2,000 square miles.
And with that, we wrap up primetime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst team, I'm David Paldano. Take care and good night.